welcome to those that just joined. My name is Morgan Holm. I'm the VP of Product Management for Five9 Software. Alexander Karavanov, the Director of Solutions Engineering, is also joining me on this webinar. And today we're going to talk to you about improving your data center security and your compliance with Five9 Cloud Security version 8. So I'm just going to go through a bit of housekeeping as well as we get into the agenda. Feel free to use the question tool to go ahead and enter questions at any time going through the webinar. Alexander and I will address those questions at the end. Today I'm going to go through and just do a brief company introduction for those of you who aren't familiar with Five9. We're going to talk about the latest features and enhancements that we've done to the product set. And we're going to go through a summary selection section and review in a demo what those feature sets are and talk about how the application works. So Five9 is a leading global Hyper-V security solution management provider. We're the only agentless solutions with Microsoft virtualization. We're founded back in 2009. Our headquarters are currently in Chicago, and we have staff in 24 regions in the world, and including 17 Microsoft MVPs. Almost 100,000 Hyper-V users are using our solution set in data centers of all different sizes. We have very different solution sets. Today we're focusing in on cloud security, but we also have a management solution set and a V2V virtualization from VMware to Hyper-V converter solution set as well. So we have a global presence around the world with 24 different cities, 17 countries. Our cloud security solution set that we're talking about today really helps to address all the security vulnerabilities that Hyper-V has. We're providing multiple functionality inside the solution set where we can address firewalling and the firewalling at the Hyper-V host level. We do agentless antivirus and anti-malware, Intrusion Detection System as well, and we do network anomaly analysis. So we have also a plugin for System Center VMM, or Virtual Machine Manager. We also have Windows to AsiaPac Extension. What our agentless design allows us to do is really provide the fastest scans in the industry. And you can find out more information about the product set here. You'll see that link again when we go through the resources. So I'm going to talk about the latest enhancements. We added some new features and functionality in version 8. We work very closely with our prospects and client base to help them solve the problems that they're facing around security and compliance. One of the things that we've done is we've improved our logging and to help companies that have to report for compliance mandates as well as for internal security. We also work on helping them to retain and to do analysis in third-party tool sets. We've improved our active protection capabilities for those systems that require a higher level of anti-malware protection sets. And we've done some simplification on the intrusion detection, analytics, and alerting so that people are able to make decisions quicker with the information that we're providing them. I don't want to just talk about version 8 because there were some key features that were also added in our 7 stream as well. We added deep packet inspection, antivirus policies, as well as host level protection. So the first one I'm going to talk about is enhanced logging for compliance and reporting. So this feature set was put in to address those organizations that really need to provide detailed logging, and they may also have to provide that detailed logging from a very high volume or high traffic environment. So what we're doing here is we're able to gather all of those allowed and blocked firewall log data and forward that information off to a syslog or CM system. Now this gives the ability for those organizations to keep all of those security events and maintain those based on the retention policy, either internally that they may have or is required by any regulatory compliance mandate. It also allows them to do analysis in those systems as well. This ability gives them the ability to store those logs in a remote location. And this is really done for two different reasons. It's to ensure the integrity of the log data itself, as well as to maintain the security. So you're separating the logs from where they're being collected. That way you can ensure that they're not being tampered with in case one of those machines becomes compromised. And really we came about to go ahead and put this feature set in from specific customer usage scenarios. Now it applies to more than the ones that I'm going to talk about here today, but these were some of the key ones that we developed these feature sets for. There's a financial services customer that has an insurance customer portal, and their compliance mandate is that they need to store all access attempts, blocked or even allowed, and retain that information for 12 months. They're also not able to store that information on the machine from which it's gathered. So in this particular scenario, they are going ahead and forwarding it out to a SIEM system. In this particular case, it's actually a Splunk system. And we do support the RFC 5424 header for Splunk, as well as plain syslog as well. The other customer scenario that we're covering, and we have several customers in the service provider space, is they also have clients that have compliance mandates as well. So in that particular scenario, they're also required to store logging information, and maybe they're even required to send those logs on some customer basis back to that particular customer. So this is what we've done around the logging for compliance and reporting. And this is really trying to alleviate all the challenges associated with gathering and storing logs of that particular volume, so that they can go through and have analysis done, reporting for internal and external audits as well. Next feature set I'm going to talk about here is the improved active protection. I want to take a little step back and really kind of talk about what active protection means from a 5.9 standpoint. This is a scenario where you want to have on-access scanning done inside of a particular virtual machine, and this is where you're not going in an agentless approach. We do have an integration service-like functionality there for real-time activity. Now, some of the differences between a traditional endpoint or legacy antivirus is our active protection never does a full system scan. And what I mean by this is the service that's running inside of the virtual machine that's requiring that higher level of malware scanning. It never does scheduled scans of, say, hard disks. And this is one of the activities that puts the greatest load on a virtual machine. We also have some unique feature sets here where our service does not require a network connection for reporting its status. So if we find or do any detections, it doesn't have to have a network connection to report that out. So in case there is a piece of malware that disables the network, we're still able to get the detection notification. It also doesn't require network connection for signature updates, and this is where we also have some improved performance capabilities. The Active Protection Service will get the updates from the host, the Hyper-V host itself, as opposed to each of them going out across the network and downloading their own copy of those signature updates. So now I'll talk a little bit about the Active Protection improvements. We have extended the actions upon detection. So we're going to go ahead and allow you to disinfect or move to quarantine, and you can make those choices. We also have improved the speed at which detection notifications are sent out so that you're more agile in responding to any sort of detections. And that gives you the ability to decide if there's a particular threat, if you need to immediately quarantine that whole machine, or what you need to do. We've also gone ahead and improved the status reporting, so we know what version of signature sets are on that particular machine, etc. So that's what we've done on the active protection component in cloud security. From a customer usage scenario, again, there's many. Where it's particularly evident is those customers that are using VDI. In that particular scenario, you have the users interacting on that particular VM, so it's actually more important to go ahead and make sure that any action that end user is taking doesn't actually compromise or have malware. Another couple scenarios where we have customers that have, for example, payment card data on a particular VM. They may want a higher level of security, so they're going ahead and enabling the active protection capability there. Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk now about what we've done around the intrusion detection, analytics, and alerting. So intrusion detection IDS is done with the Cisco Snort business signature set, and they're a recognized leader in intrusion detection. What we've done there is we've done some enhancements around the analytics and logging features. So we've gone ahead and helped you identify the source name or the IP address of where this is coming from, added the protocol name to that information, as well as the direction of the potential attack. There is also an additional column entered into the logging where we have suspected intrusion detection, and those can be used with the syslog or SIM systems to identify where you may want to do further investigation. We've also included some detailed IDS information in those email alerts, so those description fields from Snort, as well as those updated IP address, protocol names, and direction of the attack. And that really all that comes down to is giving you that information much quicker, so you know whether you're dealing with something that's either not supposed to be happening in your environment, or it may be explainable based on that information that's provided to you. From a customer usage scenario, we're targeting this for the security admin that receives that email alert, and gives them that ability to go through and quickly analyze that information, so they can identify if this is truly a threat right away and choose to go ahead and act upon it. Deep packet inspection is something else that we've added in, and this was for organizations that really want to take their security posture up to the next level. A lot of attack vectors are using DNS to redirect users unknowingly to clone sites where they can go ahead and harvest usernames and passwords to take information, intellectual property, financial, what have you. Also, they could do this directly with on websites for common typing mistakes, etc. So what we've done on the deep packet inspection is we have the ability to go ahead and define rules for both DNS and HTTP. In this particular scenario, it doesn't work like the rest of our cloud security solution set, where if you enable, for example, the firewall, everything is blocked by default. It's more of a whitelist approach where you have to add. Of course, that wouldn't be practical from a web page standpoint or from a DNS server standpoint as well. So what we do is we allow you to go ahead and define the rule sets and process them in priority order. On the HTTP side, we have a user agent string as well, so that if there's a particular supported browser that you want to go ahead and use, or you can also try to block out any vulnerability scanners that are looking for weaknesses in applications that you are running in your environment. Another thing we've done here is added antivirus policies. And what this gives you is better than a one-size-fits-all kind of solution set, where you can now target policy configurations to types of machines based on either their workload or function within the environment. We've also added a default policy as well. So this gives you that ability to go ahead and immediately protect any machines that are added based on the default policy. So that's sort of a minimum set of rules, if you will, of what you want to have happen to any VMs that are being added into your environment. So you can go through and create groups or policies and apply them to specific machines. This includes the active protection state and mode that you want them to operate in. So for example here, when you're working with machines that are part of a workload, again for maybe under PCI DSS, they process card data, you may want to have them at a much more secure posture than another server, say like a public website, for example. You also can specify exclusions, scanned extensions, and blocked and or allowed threats that the particular antivirus vendor that you're working with may detect on a regular basis, and you may know it's not a threat. You can choose not to have that trigger an alert each time. Another big feature set from the 7 version release, 7.x version releases, is the ability to do host level protection. And we talked with our customer base about having the host-based protection where they wanted to protect the actual server infrastructure that they use for virtualization as well as the VMs on the inside. So what we've done here is wherever there is integration with a physical network adapter or network card that's attached to a virtual switch, we have all supported functionality. So you can have the ability to go ahead and configure firewalling rule sets, intrusion detection. We have the network traffic scanner where we can look for viruses coming through HTTP, for example, and we can also detect network anomalies. And what we do there is we analyze traffic patterns on those machines to see whether they are performing as expected or as they have in the past. And if there's a deviation from that normal behavior, we'll go ahead and alert you to it. It may be something that's known, but it could be a sign of something bad going on that you need to investigate further. So basically what this allows you to do then is you can completely control that Hyper-V infrastructure with cloud security, and in this scenario where you have traffic going east to west, and that's what we mean by that is where you're having virtual switch traffic between VMs that never hits a network card. You don't have to have that routed outside to go through a firewall appliance. That's how many people were trying to deal with traffic in that scenario. We're going to be able to see that with our solution set there. And this includes then any also network cards that are attached to the virtual switch as well. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and do a demo. I'll hand it over to Alexander, and he can go ahead and start showing you folks what the product looks like in action.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you. What I would like to remind everyone is if you have any questions on what Morgan just mentioned, or probably any other questions connected to finding cloud security, whatever version you're currently using, please feel free to put them into a questions box, and we'll be happy to address these questions in the end of this session. So what we are going to have a look at this moment, so it's going to be Finding Cloud Security version 8 and its latest enhancements that we just outlined, and we're also going to quickly cover the major enhancements that we put into the product within 7 release. And the first enhancement that is definitely standing out for version 8 is related to the way we allow to process logs for large-scale environments as well as very heavy loaded environments. And you know that when you are monitoring and protecting virtual machines, basically you are always willing to have information about all the allowed and blocked packets for each virtual machine on a network level. And of course, from security standpoint, this is critical to understand if you get hit by an attack, right, or you have some malicious activity happening within your network. So therefore, compliance regulations require you to be able to store this log and review this whenever that's necessary. By default, Finding Cloud Security offers you the way to quickly have a look at all the latest events on every security layer, including virtual firewall. And of course, you can review all the allowed connections, all the blocked connections, and filter that per column, depending on the action you would like to explore. But for some scenarios, whenever you use virtual machine as a very heavy loaded one, so when you use a virtual machine as a gateway, which is pretty popular scenario at the moment, you know that you can actually leverage the full 10 gigabit speed capacity of a virtual machine. And in this scenario, a virtual machine may generate a huge amount of logs that are very hard to review in one single window, right? So you'll probably want to go and review them in some kind of a specialized system that was built and designed for that. So for this kind of support, Find Cloud Security offers integration of the syslog and Splunk servers. And as Morgan mentioned, the major difference between syslog standardized service and Splunk are basically the headers, and RFC 5424 header is the one that Splunk uses. So whenever you export all these logs to a centralized login system, you can analyze that flow and set up your own alerts and use this system for extra compliance requirements and for higher log retention policy. What we wanted to achieve with this release, and this is what we are doing here, is so now you can actually offload all the logs that are appearing on your Hyper-V host, even if you use virtual machines as gateways, directly to centralized login system. So previously, with version 7 and version 6 releases, you had to bypass all the logs through our management server to later on pass them to a centralized login system. But with version 8, you can now handle a huge amount of logs because this can be directly transferred to a centralized login system, which is usually load balanced, right? And it's built and designed to aggregate the large amount of data related to login. So within version 8, you can now send them directly from each Hyper-V host and even bypass our management service. So if you want to, you can actually send all the logs for all the hundreds of virtual machines or all heavy loaded virtual machines directly to this centralized login system. Also, now you can ensure that you can convert log time format to local, whatever you're viewing that with, and track absolute records purge events and review events for your login system. Also, something I would like to share with you related to heavy loaded environments that we now support is the way you can set up login for each virtual machine. So you can configure the number of retention days within Cloud Security Systems, so within our own log retention policy, and a number of events directly in virtual machine settings. Also, you can specify whether you want to retain the filtered events, allowed events, or certain types of events like SPI or allowed in SPI. If virtual machine is very heavy loaded and you're not ready to pass the information to the centralized login system and you want to place an experiment, you can also put a login off if that's going to be permitted for this particular virtual machine. So all the scenarios related to login are now covered, and you can also export finite logs, finite cloud security logs directly from the product interface to your file via just a couple of clicks basically. So you export log to a file and you can select format to do this. So that's going to be XLS, CSV, PDF format, whatever you are going to need there. So it becomes way easier to retain logs, to store logs, and to analyze logs with Finite Cloud Security version 8. This is definitely a great enhancement. And as an intrusion detection system, that we also greatly improved in this release. And this is now based on Cisco's Not for Business. So this is a business edition of Cisco Snort that allows you to install updates and signatures whenever they're available. And this version 8, we made sure that you can also export the logs, from Intrusion Detection System, like a major security system, and also review events in more detail. So you can now review the protocol event is happening. You can get alert identifier, and of course, a description for each alert that's happening in the bottom of the screen. Also, something I would like to stress, and this is what really makes Intrusion Detection System built within cloud security so efficient for virtualization, is because it integrates into Hyper-V virtual switches every single other functionality, right? And it allows you to analyze traffic flow for private, internal, and external networks. So all of them are covered, no blind spots remain. And even if virtual machine tries to spoof its address, so it tries to represent itself as another system, you can still clearly see what virtual machine is performing an attack, or what virtual machine is the subject for an attack. Because virtual switch is still the very first connection point for each virtual machine. Therefore, you can be confident that you can see exact system that triggered this event. So Intrusion Detection System, has been greatly enhanced and also allows you to achieve compliance regulation requirements. As of active protection that we improved in version 8, this actually made a huge step forward in terms of communications and making sure you can now configure virtual machines and check their state very, very faster. So, active protection is very different to a legacy antivirus solution, right? So, because it never does full system scans, so it only performs real-time operations inside a virtual machine, and all the full system scans are offloaded to Hyper-V host, and we do this with change block tracking technology and our agentless scanning methods. So active protection is basically only doing real-time tasks. It doesn't require a network to report back its state, so it operates basically like integration service, and this is what we actually call it. So this is something that you can call antivirus integration service inside Hyper-V virtual machine. So it can report back its state using the integration service method, so it doesn't require you to go and maintain the network for this virtual machine. This is just critical, because if there is a malware that disables protection, or tries to disable protection, or it tries to disable the network, right, you still have to be aware about that. Happen. So this is what exactly we do there. And also from the update perspective, active protection does not require any internet access. So all the updates are flowing inside the virtual machine directly from the Hyper-V host level. So we have Hyper-V optimized methods for everything for active protection, and it's also a very lightweight operation inside VM. So with version 8, that's been greatly enhanced. So now you also have multiple options on default actions that being performed with active protection. You can use even better, more secure, and performance-based actions for antivirus active protection setup. So you can choose whatever mode you want active protection to be working inside virtual machines, and you can also now use policies. And of course, this is one of the major antivirus-related enhancements that appeared throughout version 7 that allows you to actually configure the active protection and other parameters for antivirus scanning based on antivirus policies. So now you can select a group of virtual machines that you want to apply certain settings for, and say, web server lite may use a different antivirus and active protection policy than other virtual machines residing in your infrastructure. So that's been great. So active protection is now reporting back its state several times faster. So that was fast before, but now it's even more efficient. You have faster, more secure and performance-based modes for active protection work, and you can select between multiple modes for default detection inside a virtual machine, and you can also now create policies for virtual machines to be able to flexibly protect it. So you can now choose what mode you want to use for each virtual machine. Also, let me have a quick look at what it looks like to enable active protection on a virtual machine. So this is very quick when you go to antivirus app, active protection, and basically if active protection is installed, you see that it's running there, you see the service version, and you see the latest update time for this particular virtual machine. If there is no active protection integration service running, you don't have to log in inside virtual machine. Basically all you need to do is just select a virtual machine and you hit install agent. So when you reboot the virtual machine, it starts up automatically with active protection service enabled. Just keep in mind that reboot action has to be performed through Final Cloud Security Console. So this is very easy to use. Once again, it's not mandatory. You can keep protecting your system with agentless scanning methods like agentless full system scans, but active protection is definitely recommended and sometimes required for environments like virtual desktop infrastructure. So just please feel free to put your questions in a chat box once again. So if there are any related to antivirus, I'll be happy to address them in the very end of the session. And just keep in mind that we'll be addressing them in the very end of today's webinar. So another enhancement that appeared in Final Cloud Security throughout version 8 that Morgan mentioned today is the deep packet inspection. So deep packet inspection is the way to apply firewall rules basically on an application level, right? So with Final Cloud Security, you can now create rules that are going to prevent access to unwanted websites, and this of course can include the sites that try to mimic the very well-known platforms, well-known websites, right, by just changing the letter there and trying to catch those users who made typos. Also, one of the key aspects of secure network behavior, right, and make sure that your users do not access some malicious websites, is the way to block malicious DNS servers. And of course, this has been a very popular type of attack, and we need to prevent it whenever that's possible. So, for example, you may find, just we all know, right, Google DNS server, right? So someone may create, DNS server on 9999, trying to catch those users who are going to put in this DNS server, or there may be software that replaces the DNS server in the background for network configuration. So you would want to block that and therefore protect your users from getting to an unwanted website, right? So while they're using correct DNS names. And all you basically need to do here, you just put in the URL string for this malicious DNS server, hit OK, and none of the virtual machines is going to be able to use and send DNS packets for 999 malicious DNS server. So in combination with protection from malicious websites, protection from malicious DNS service is definitely adds you extra protection layer with Cloud Security version 8. And last thing that I would like to demonstrate today is related to host protection. I'm going to be quick here, but host protection is indeed one of the major enhancements that we have added into the product. So the reason it's so important is because sometimes you have to rely on combination of physical protection and virtual system protection. But in some cases, in some scenarios, right, so you may have to be going the completely virtualized way. So it depends on the environment. You may be hosting your environment on another, just in a different data center, not your own, right? So you may need to cut the number of units that you use in the rack, or you may just want to protect everything with a single solution. So with, starting from version 7.1, actually you are now able to enable protection, firewall, you see antivirus, intrusion detection system, network anomalies, even network traffic scanner and connection stable are all available now for Hyper-V host level. One thing that I would like to mention today, just and stress your attention here, that we can protect the hosts that are using network adapters connected to virtual switches. So all network adapters had to be connected to external virtual switches. In this case, Final Cloud Security is able to apply security policies and filtering for this kind of traffic. So this setup is definitely possible. Just depending on your architecture, you can use combination of pure physical devices and the ones connected to virtual switches. Just keep in mind that Final Cloud Security is going to help you protecting those network adapters that are connected to virtual switches. That's pretty important to note. And if that's the case, please make sure that you create appropriate firewall rules for your Hyper-V hosts to make sure that traffic flow is not interrupted. So with that, I'm going to switch back to our slide session, and we are going to discuss some summary principles of Final Cloud security operations. Meanwhile, I would like to remind you, so if you have any questions, please put them into questions box and we'll be happy to address your questions in the very end of the session. All right. So with Final Cloud Security, we maintain the agentless model, and majority of you probably know that already. So we do rely on agentless technology to protect virtual machines. And there are actually multiple reasons for that. So first one of them is about security agent being installed on Hyper-V host only without the need to deploy anything or requirement to deploy anything inside the virtual machine. So this is something that allows you to save precious performance and make sure that virtual machines are protected from outside, even if administrator has no access to a virtual machine, right? So if you are providing services to customers, or internal users that do not share access to a virtual machine, you may want to make sure that they're completely protected. They cannot disable security, but just they're not able to see the security, and you can make sure that they're completely protected outside of a virtual machine. So this is what we achieve, and you don't really need to have access to a virtual machine anymore. One of the interesting facts related to providing services to customers on your hosted environment or to your users inside your environment, right, is called as a best principle, and it's called do not trust your users. Because your users would never be as cautious about enabling protection on their virtual machines and maintaining the protection as high as you really need that. So do not trust your users. Make sure that you can enable protection outside of their virtual machines. So as of the number of capabilities that you are adding to our product, you may have noticed that one of the later enhancements was related to deep packet inspection, right? But network traffic scanner is also something that operates directly on virtual switch level, and we do not install anything inside of virtual machines. So we maintain the agentless model as far as we can, and as long as we can for every single virtual machine for every security layer. So as of the quick reminder for the threat flow to a virtual machine, the way we operate with that. So whenever a virtual machine gets traffic, gets its packet, right, it travels through a physical network adapter, then it gets to a virtual switch, then it gets to a virtual network adapter, and then it gets to a virtual machine. So Final Cloud Security integrates inside a virtual switch, right? So this is exactly where we control traffic, and this is why it's so important for host level protection to have physical network adapter connected to this external switch. So this is the place where we control traffic and where we allow it if that's allowed, and where we completely block it, right? So if it's not allowed or if it's explicitly prohibited. So integration is inside a virtual switch is our key integration point in Hyper-V platform, and this is still true for Hyper-V host level protection as well. Also keep in mind, so this is the only method to eliminate any bottlenecks from process and traffic perspectives, right? Because if you don't use any appliances here, we process traffic directly on a virtual switch level, and you also can process private and internal networks, which otherwise would be blind spots for any other external solution, including actual virtual appliances inside the system. A few enhancements that got added in version 7 and version 8, of course, made it into Cloud Security AsiaPac Extension as well. This is something that allows you to provide self-service capabilities for internal users or hosting customers if you run hosting services. And this is growing along with the product. Of course, it's a little bit different, right, to our backend product, to our standalone product. So, the features make it according to service needs, right, first place. One of the features that actually made it inside AsiaPac Extension between 7.0 and 8.0 releases was related to active, to antivirus scans being available inside AsiaPac interface. So now you can actually launch the scans directly from AsiaPac interface, both from admin portal and from the tenant portal. There are also enhancements from usability perspective, from logs review perspective, of course, but this been a pretty major one over the course of last few months. Also, you know that Microsoft is planning Asia Stack release, as Microsoft announced in World Partner Conference this year. So they're going to announce the release of that in July 2017. Previously, that was expected by the end of this year. So now everyone knows that that's going to be suspended, for another half a year. So if you're still not sure whether you need to deploy AsiaPac and because you have plans on deploying Asia Stack, please feel free to do this. Also, Microsoft is going to come up with some connector methods to make sure that you can actually operate both environments together. And just to quickly summarize what Fine and Cloud Security offers you as security layers, and this is where we are going to talk through this. So Fine and Cloud Security offers you a host level protection for virtual network adapters connected to virtual switch. It allows you to automatically protect virtual machines on network level, so you can enable security by default for every newly created virtual machine, and Fine and Cloud Security is going to automatically do this. So you have virtual firewall capabilities that are controlled on virtual switch level, antivirus detection on network for HTTP traffic, and 3 antivirus vendors, which are Bitdefender, Kaspersky, or ThreatTrack, whatever you prefer. Antivirus scans on the disk. This is agentless full system scanning based on patent technology, as well as change block tracking for very fast scans that are usually between 1 and 2 minutes per virtual machine for full system antivirus scan. Network intrusion detection system based on Cisco's Not for Business that analyzes traffic flow between virtual machines and allows you to eliminate any spoofing errors, so you can tell exactly what virtual machine got attacked or what virtual machine is trying to perform an attack, and you have full visibility on that. You have network anomaly analysis that allows you to create a baseline of virtual machines behavior and look for its deviations whenever that's necessary, and you get alerts if virtual machine starts behaving differently than what baseline is. And of course, you can extend Fine and Cloud Security login to external analytics systems. You can export all the logs to syslog or Splunk servers, and with version 8 release, you can now do this directly from Hyper-V host, providing huge amount of logs and all the events from firewall to your centralized login system analytics. So with that, we are going to go through a few resources and through questions and answers section. So a few resources that I would recommend you to go through. So please have a look at virtual labs. This is available on our website. Fine and virtual labs allow you to test Fine and Cloud Security without the need to install that in any of your environments, in your test environments even. So this has pre-configured server environment that has pre-installed Final Cloud Security, and it has a good description of every single step you need to perform to set up a security state for your system. If you're ready to go and move forward with the trial, trial is available on find.com/security. And if you're interested in acquiring the product, please contact sales@find.com. License is very close to Windows Server and System Center licenses, so it's very straightforward, based on per 2 CPU, pairs, and virtual machine density. So once again, these are virtual labs that I strongly recommend you to have a look at, and a few more resources that you can use for your reference. With that, I would like to jump into the questions and answers section. And Morgan, do you have any questions in our message box?
Yes, thank you, Alex. That was great. Yeah, we have some questions that came in. Actually, you covered one of them with the antivirus vendors that we support. Sorry, I forgot to mention that when I was going through that we do have Bitdefender, Kaspersky, and ThreatTrack. So whatever your preference is there, you can choose the vendor that suits you the best. Another question that we got was around, do we support OMS? So for those of you not familiar, OMS is Microsoft's Cloud Operations Management Suite. It's sort of like a System Center, but in the cloud. And we are actually actively working with Microsoft on OMS to have the information of those logs go up. And basically, it's going to provide the SIEM system capabilities, and it does support syslog. So we are working with Microsoft, and we'll keep folks updated there as progress is made on the OMS integration for that centralized logging and analytics from OMS.
Thank you, Morgan.
Oh, another question around. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so just let me read one of the next questions here. So we have a question about the AP supported operating system versions. So this is actually a great question. Of course, it's very important for everyone to consider when deploying the infrastructure. So for Linux operating systems, we encourage you to be using the agentless methods of network scanning. So this is what we use network traffic scanning for, and this is what we are planning to extend in Final Cloud Security, being an agentless method of real-time virus detection within the network flow. As of the active protection integration service support, so basically as it behaves as an integration service, so we only support Windows operating systems at the moment. So keep in mind, so if you're going to be rolling it out, so you're going to be rolling it out on the Windows systems, and as of Linux systems, you would be doing this with agentless methods. Okay, Morgan, so I think you wanted to go through our next question here.
Yeah, so we also had a question about the if the webinar is being recorded and is going to be made available. Most definitely, we'll have that available, so folks can review this at their leisure, or those that were unable to attend today for whatever reason can also go through and look at that as well.
Cool. I think just let me go through our next question here. So, and the question is about antivirus again. So, is there any pricing difference between antivirus vendors, Bitdefender, Kaspersky, and ThreatTrack? So, we make sure that our products are very easy to price and just and acquire. So we don't make any pricing differences between these antivirus vendors. This is your choice, your preferred choice on which antivirus engine you like the most. And I should tell you that depending on your preference, right? So you use one, second to another. If you need some more background on how to choose the antivirus vendor that is proper for your system, please feel free to reach out to us or to use some publicly available reviews that are going to give you some hints here. I should tell you, Gartner is a great source of information as well, and just that they always publish the Gartner Magic Quadrant, yearly Magic Quadrant for antivirus vendors. So you can use that as a reference, or feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to walk you through the antivirus engine choice process.
Just to add to that, Alexander, there's also a number of third-party antivirus testing organizations. AV Comparative comes to mind. There's a few other ones as well. You can also use them as an information source to help you make your decisions there as well. We have another question regarding if somebody can get some assistance. Sure, we can go ahead and take that offline, and we'd be glad to help you out.
All right. So it seems that we had a chance to go through a majority of our questions today. So guys, if there are any unanswered questions, or if there are more questions they would like to ask, we're going to keep webinar running for another couple of minutes. So please feel free to use this time to add more of your questions. And with that, I would like to thank you for attending our today's webinar. Thank you so much for devoting an hour of your time and having a look at Final Cloud Security version 8 latest enhancements. This is Morgan and me, and we are looking forward to seeing you on our next webinar, which is also going to be happening pretty soon. So please stay tuned, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. And the other thing I'd like to add is we're going to be at Microsoft Ignite in Atlanta as well. So if any of you happen to be attending that conference, feel free to drop by our booth to have a discussion and look at some other demos of some new exciting product sets that are coming out. Thank you everyone for your time.